Welcome, everybody, and thank you for welcoming me into your eyes or ears. I suppose I'm somewhere near your retina, somewhere in the back of your eye, or maybe I'm in your brain, or maybe I've snuck in through the side. If you're listening to this, I suppose the vibrations of my voice going into this microphone now entering your ears, getting translated into what is it, like ones and zeros, digital signals or something, going into the part of your brain that registers sound and interprets it into meaning. I'm in there somewhere, I suppose. Alternatively, it is possible that I'm just in a space of consciousness that is also called your shining, shimmering, divine soul. Let me know in the comments where you think I am. Let's get this off with some music. Not get off like that, sicko. Oh, should I sing? What would it be about? Could you tell me if you were my friend? Let me hear you shout the wisdom through my ears, back in time through my eyes. Let the shimmering divine space of my soul know what it should be singing, know what it should call, good and bad and right and wrong and all. Hey, yeah, whatever comes and goes must be alright, 'cause it's all I have, even though I already rhymed with that word. It's gonna have to do, and it would only be absurd to try anything else other than what comes and what's on your shelf, what's in the library of your mind, what's gonna come on the winds of time. Oh, yes. Stay clear. Stay. Good go. Okay. Talking to my guitar, of course, as you do. So, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about education and real education. I want to talk about, in general, I think education can sound a bit boring, strangely. I think most kids and teenagers, if you polled them, what do you think about education? Oh, that's that thing that gets in the way of me and my dreams, isn't it? And a lot of adults probably go, oh, that was the thing that used to get in between me and my dreams, wasn't it? Etc. But I think really kind of being robbed, most likely, inadvertently, I believe, for the most part. In some parts of the world, it's very intentional, but being robbed of the potential of education and how amazing it can be. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about, what education really means and the various kind of forms of it. And a big theme of that is going to be, it should be really practical. I think education is meant to be about living. And that's why it's so good. It's like it elevates the video game of your life. You get to play, a better level of the video game or better graphics. The technology has been pushed 30 years into the future, of the video game of your life, basically. Education is cookies, was it a Easter egg or whatever, improving or a cheat code. You know, Rosebud in Sims. Just, you know, you can live a more dreamy life. So, and we're also going to talk about, like, well, I'm going to talk about, you can pretend you're me, which you might be. So I guess you can pretend you're pretending to be me. That's for the sages out there. Or for the regular schmucks like you and I, you can believe you are pretending to be me. Or you could just listen and think about, or watch and think about what we're going to talk about, which is the way education, you know, the traditional education that most of us get. What's good about it? What I think, like, yep, that's fair enough. But, and maybe here and there, what should be tweaked. Like, it's good, but it's done in the wrong way, you know, in my humble opinion. And also a lot of things which aren't really focused on at all in education, and which I think for children, teenagers, and adults, someone who's listening to this podcast, right? You can do this. You can teach yourself, right? There's a lot of things which we haven't been taught, which will radically improve your existence. So, you know, and I've stumbled upon it from being obsessively curious, perhaps, or lucky enough to hear from people who are like, are you aware of this thing? No, I was not. Now I am. So, and God knows what other aspects of education I'm completely oblivious to right now, which is a beautiful thought. Like, for sure, there's so many things that I would love to be learning, which I'm just totally unaware of, even my insufficiency in there, which is also a key theme of, I think, education is, and life in general, is that awareness precedes, the awareness of a problem precedes the arriving of a solution. So awareness is the beginning of all positive change. You can't solve a problem until you've noticed it and come to understand it. You might accidentally get lucky if you've half understood a problem or noticed part of the problem, and you might just like flinging your arms wildly like some white belt in a martial arts class and just accidentally slap the black belt, and, you know, he goes unconscious. Oh, great. Sorted out. You might get lucky, but more likely than not, you'll just cause problems and, you know, hurt yourself, right? So you want to notice and understand the nature of our problems. Then we can start to try to test solutions. So anyway, very interesting topic, I reckon. Education, and real education, not the boring type which the Illuminati wants to wrap around your neck and hang you from a tree. Absolutely ironic. Please don't worry. All right. So, yeah, I think, first of all, why is education important? Oh, for a career and for being a good person and looking good to the Joneses next door. No, it's just a joy. It's like the most fun you can have with your clothes on, right? Learning, education, expanding your awareness, your mind. I think it really is probably the greatest joy there is, I think, is consciousness and being, maybe just existing and being aware that you're here and just being peaceful. And how often does that happen, you know? Like, we're kind of programmed, I think, to always be looking for problems and fixing things. And fair enough, we've got lots of problems, you may have noticed. Let me know if you don't have a problem. Let me know in the comments. That would be, if you're on YouTube, that would be interesting. I would take my hat off to you if that is so. So that peaceful being, just existing, isn't that common. We probably all experience it every now and then, some people more than others. So that probably takes the cake. But apart from just being and being in your own skin and being happy with what you have in the moment, probably the greatest joy, I think, is like a slight extension of that, which is education. So learning, understanding, knowing, seeing a little bit more of what is, who you are, what the universe is, what life is, how you should be living, how you can be living, how other people are living, who they are. You know, it's just mapping out the video game. It's the dark parts of the map turning light as you go around and explore, and this making order out of chaos, this exploration. It's a very fundamental thing, and that's what we do when we read or when we watch a movie, when you get to know somebody and you're talking to them, when you're doing anything new, really. Oh, you're starting a new sport. That joy or that spark of like, oh, what is this? And it's expanding your horizons, right? So I think that's what education really offers. Of course, also it can really help your livelihood and your career. Like, I mean, of course, you can't have a career or a livelihood without education. Traditionally, it would be, oh, you're Harry Potter. Your father was James Potter. Okay, so he presumably makes pots, right? He's practiced, probably from his parents or whatever, have taught him how to make pottery, and he's an expert at it. Other people have no idea how to do that. They're busy being experts of their own thing. So and that's better than everyone trying to be an expert at everything, because then you never get very good. Everyone makes their own stuff, but it's not very good quality. Oh, what about, instead of everyone does 10 things, everyone does one thing, and those 10 people can trade, and they're all going to be better quality, right? That's economics, specialization of industry, right? But the potter teaches his son, right? Okay, here or his daughter, right? No discrimination against female potters. Let's all hear it for the female potters of the world. Yeah. Much love. So, yeah, like the parent would teach the child how to do their skills, and they would go, oh, thank God. We kind of tend to think, oh, how terrible is that? Well, I mean, for any of those people who've, been to university for years and then they come out and saddled with debt and there's no job prospects and they're working, in a Deliveroo or whatever, Uber Eats delivery kind of thing, you might think, well, actually, the dignity of being an expert at one thing, and I can have a livelihood, I can live off that. And my family's been doing it. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake would probably say, he would definitely say that most likely there is a memory field that exists in parallel to genetics, and it's not just genes, but your parents and your family, the things that they have been practicing, there's a certain memory associated with that genetic dynasty or lineage, and that if your father was a potter, if your mother was a potter, it's going to be easier, most likely, for you to do it. So, that was the traditional way. You learn it from your parents, and so that could be pretty good, right? However, that's the basic one, right? Of education giving you a livelihood. It came from your parents. These days, I'm very happy about it. I think I assume overall it is a great thing, right? That we can choose our destinies. We can choose what we want to do. You can still do the same thing your parents did if you want, but you don't have to, right? Which is great. It's freedom. So, but if you don't speak English and you learn English, right, that massively opens up many opportunities for you for getting visas to go to countries where you have better opportunities for financial opportunities or opportunities for safety or getting away from corruption and crime or whatever, or cultural opportunities, engaging with Hollywood. Oh, maybe that's not a cultural opportunity anymore. Engaging with Netflix, and poetry and all the rich traditions that have largely formed the modern world, which a lot of it came through English. A lot of study is conducted through English, even in countries which aren't English speaking. They want to use the language to engage. That's a tangent. All right, come back, Jamie. Easy boy. So point being, that would be one example of where education can uplift you career-wise, right? So, and there's many things you can, of course. If you can learn coding, or you can learn anything that people need or want, if you can learn it, then that's obviously going to advance your prospects materially in this universe. And so, yeah, it's financial independence. It's freedom, right, of a form. So, and also you can uplift your surroundings. You can uplift the world, be it your family, your friends, your community, your country, the whole planet. If you are becoming more knowledgeable, more aware, more skilled, that's not going to cause any problems if you're a good person. And I think most people are good people. So the general rule would be, yeah, be as educated as you can. That's only going to be to the good. That's only going to help us. So, and I think, there's many ways we could do it, but some basic divisions would be, say, well, wisdom, of course, like good judgment. Generally, the more information you have, the more things you're exposed to. It doesn't always mean you become wiser, but in general, there's many more opportunities for you to kind of clue up to the way things are and what's useful and what's not useful for everyone. But Wim Hof, the Iceman, Wim Hof, he who's incredible. If you don't know about him, please look him up. Talks about, he has this kind of triangle that he kind of refers to when talking about the benefits of his breathing and cold exposure and mindfulness method, which has been studied by scientists and has incredible results. And basically talking about how everyone has the ability to be happy, healthy, and strong, which he's very cool because he always grounds it in biology, and which is accessible to our modern kind of scientifically valuing culture. We like to, fair enough, to check things through science. So happiness, endocrine system, your mood, right? Health, your immune system, and general other processes. But your strength, I think, what does he say? Strength would be, can't remember what he would say that translates into physically. But perhaps like something like willpower, more or less, I think, which perhaps would be your neural connections, your ability to put yourself into, to make hard choices to have an easy life, rather than easy choices to have a hard life. So being able to have a strong mind, and also, I suppose, physical strength, being able to tolerate stress, physical and emotional or mental. Anyway, so that's a little aside, but Wim Hof, here's this triangle thing of these three benefits. And I think education can improve. You could do the Wim Hof method. That's something I definitely recommend. I'll mention what it is in more detail later. But basically, those three things, health, happiness, and strength, if you can educate yourself in a way where your knowledge and your abilities expand in all those areas, that's only going to help everyone around you. It's going to rub off on them. They're going to go, oh, look at this. Charlie's really turned a corner. Charlie's doing great. Stupid Charlie. Damn Charlie, why is he so cool? I've got to compete with him. Or, oh, Charlie's so amazing. What an inspiration. I'm going to cooperate with him there. I'm going to kind of do a similar thing. Let's join the party. So either way, it can kind of inspire us through whatever mechanism. And if the whole world is more educated and healthier, happier, stronger, especially mentally, in terms of being able to deal with challenges, and is wiser from just encountering more of the universe and noticing more of the connections and the nature of nature, then I think that's going to really improve a lot of things. So there's that social agency and ethical side to it. There's also the more self-centered livelihood side of it. And then most of all, I think just the joy. It's just fun, right? So that would be the overview of education. So now, so let's talk about the specifics. So traditional education, I think, has a lot of benefits if it's done right. Of course, if you've got a bad teacher or a bad school or a bad system or a bad government which is interfering in the process and doesn't really want to educate the people but wants to, say, indoctrinate them or kind of keep them down, give them just enough to be workers but not enough to change the status quo, and the big people who are maybe, have a kleptocracy in place, stealing from the country, which is very common, as you may be aware, in many parts of the world. If not all of the world, I suppose there might be a few places where it's not too strong. Yeah, I suppose it would be fair to say. I presume Scandinavia, and there are places where there's not a huge amount of that going on. Even in America, one could argue, not me, but like Claire, the guitar, might argue that, there's a bit of that going on. Congress people outperforming the stock market and seemingly knowing the right investments to make when just before regulations are changed. But that's neither here nor there. That is there, or the here. So, but yes, nonetheless, the traditional education, right? If it's done well, and I think there's a lot of aspects which are good. So writing, learning how to read and write. This is communicating, right? We used to speak and listen, we still do, of course, but long before reading and writing existed, we were communicating like that. But then the ability to read thoughts that people had before, it sped up it accelerated the process of our learning. It was like you can have conversations with people who are dead, right? You read their books, you go, wow, great point, Mark Twain, damn. And then you write something down, and then someone reads that 200 years later and go, wow, great point, Jamie, but actually Mark Twain, or Jamie inspired by Mark Twain. So you can have these conversations through time. And so that can, of course, reading and writing has supercharged civilization. And so you need to know how to practically, I think we need to know, and I guess this would be more for people in school, like kids and teenagers, but I think it should all be very practical, right? So writing and reading, great, but try to, especially with writing, okay, do they know how to write emails properly? Do they know good grammar? It seems like there's been a bit of a turn away from that more recently of, it's kind of boring, let's be more creative, get them self-expressing. Yeah, cool, but it's got to be in balance. You need to know punctuation. Let me know if you know what a semicolon is for. Let me know in the comments. I didn't actually until becoming an English teacher, which was a bit of a strange situation, right? Like, oh yeah, I learn stuff all the time actually. So I guess education's ongoing. You never know everything, of course, but basic writing skills, being able to write emails and letters, being able to, of many kinds, complaining when someone's pushing you too far or not giving you what you deserve, or being able to, just whatever it is, apply for jobs or whatever, or perhaps sell yourself, sell your soul. No, like this would be when you're older, of course, but like say in high school, I don't remember practicing cover letters for a job or your CV or, well, that's writing. Why aren't we doing that in English class? That seems a bit more practical than Sylvia Plath, moaning. Sorry, Sylvia Plath, you've got your place, but it's a dark place. So yeah, and also and reading, of course, exposing yourself to the great minds of the past. And I think that there's my education. I believe, again, I don't really understand the perspective, but from what I can tell, I kind of joined the stream of teaching, of education. I was educated post this kind of turn away from classical education. And okay, what were the ancient Greeks saying? What were the Renaissance or Enlightenment people saying? And there's a lot of really amazing ideas which are very useful for the world, but also for on the individual level of your own life and running your own life, which I've only encountered as an older person, right? I'm an older person now. And so I think if children are exposed to these ideas when they're younger, that can feed into the process of their self-creation. As teenagers, you're kind of finding who you are and looking for role models. So instead of your role model being, some sort of narcissistic pop star, you might find something more attractive. And I think the majority of people, we're hardwired to notice what is good and useful. And it's just a fact that being more like Martin Luther King or like some sort of visionary politician who really helped their society, or some business person who did a lot of good stuff, but also it was very innovative, but really maybe had good intentions and wanted to uplift the community. There are many examples of this, and so these heroes, right? These people who we can gravitate toward. Most children are going to notice that and go, "Well, wow, I thought Katy Perry was cool. Check out, Daniel O'Connell or whatever." So yeah, reading and exposing yourself to that, and have kids talk to each other, read the books, discuss it together. What do you think? Move on. Read, discuss. It doesn't all need to be written down. You could do it faster if you just, well, writing can be useful also. Or one person writes an essay, the other responds to it. Who do you think? So getting them to share ideas, and which we need in general to keep society balanced. We'll need that when these kids are adults, right? But also, writing as being able to articulate your thoughts. So being able to organize your thoughts through an essay, that doesn't just disappear when you're speaking. That starts to inform the way you're speaking, right? Or like anytime you're presenting ideas, it gets more structured after you've been doing it writing. The feedback loop, it comes into your thinking, right? So allowing you to communicate more clearly. So reading and writing, of course, that's good stuff, but perhaps we could tinker around with the exact method of it, and try to keep the content actually relevant and interesting to the people who are doing it. For example, have certain things which are necessary. Oh, you're going to read this. But perhaps go, all right, here's a summary of what this is about. This is a summary. Here are, now class, let's vote on which books we're going to read this term, right? That stuff like that, getting kids engaged, I think that would be a great thing for encouraging, both ensuring that they're interested in it, but even just the mere fact of giving them a choice is going to get them more interested in the process. But yeah, so I think one of the main problems with education is that it just seems boring to kids. It doesn't seem practical. You hear it time and again. So, well, why don't we try to get these conscious, sovereign beings called children and teenagers, why don't we get them involved in the decision-making process? I think there's a lot of leeway where we can say, all right, these things you need to learn. These things we can't give you the book about, how to make some, nefarious substance or whatever. There's certain things we're not going to do, but here are a bunch of things that you could study. Any of them are good. Why don't we just let them, instead of some council of, technocrats somewhere deciding, or the teacher deciding, where you could get lucky, or you could get some teacher who's maybe not the most in touch with the students, or not most in touch with themselves, or in touch with what's useful for education. You could try to involve children, or even at large have like all the teachers in the city vote on what books are going to be used. So back to decentralized systems, which we talked about in episode 3. Why we want free speech? Exactly, yeah. So maths, math. Yeah, maths, absolutely. Very important. I love maths, actually, but I think it's not for everyone. But the basics of it, I think a lot of stuff like probability curves and this kind of thing, most people do not need to be studying that at all. What's the point? You can do that in a bridging course if you need it at some point. Ditch it, get rid of it. You're just going to alienate people from this subject. So in primary school, of course, you need to have the basic maths of, arithmetic, like plus, minus, times, divide, or whatever. And maybe you could probably get basic algebra. Shout out to Sarah Ninnis. I had my sister doing algebra when she was like 7 years old. Sarah, what's a coconut? A coconut cubed, coconut to the power of 3, take away 16 equals, 50 or whatever it was. So what is a coconut? Or I'd be like, whatever, insert some word. It's this. Exactly. You're doing algebra. Just call it X instead. But and I think, a lot of people would be capable of these things if it's done in a kind of interesting way, or especially class sizes probably need to be a lot smaller, so the teachers can give individual attention to kids. And I do think there's a lot of evidence that having different age groups in the same class, which is the more traditional way, the village has one teacher, there's kids of all ages, the teacher is aware, okay, you're going on this, you're doing that. Some stuff you can do together, other stuff, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, which is like a martial arts class where maybe say jiu-jitsu, you got purple belts, maybe the black belts, like, all right, guys, you're going to go together, you're practicing this, blue belts, you're doing that, white belts, you're doing this thing. And then at some point, it's like, all right, everyone can do this together. So and when you do that, right, there are many other benefits, because the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, you have, say the older kids are able to teach the younger kids, and so they're getting greater self-esteem, they're getting more self-awareness of, whoa, yeah, I actually have learned a bunch of stuff over the last few years. Wow, yeah, that's cool. I remember learning this. Now I'm teaching it. That's really cool. So you're building self-awareness, self-confidence, kind of a positive feeling of identity, and also improving, honing, memorizing, revising what you've learned by teaching it. Oh, actually, I can't quite explain that. And then you go home and you read the book. Oh, yeah. And the next day, hey, George, this is what I was trying to say. I'd forgot that little detail. And so that's good for the older kids teaching. The younger kids, they get to feel more connected to the older kids, bonding, role models. Whoa, Susanna can do that so well. Man, I really want to be like her. That's really cool. And yeah, so there are benefits to that as well. But maths, I think keeping it practical would be really good. Like, okay, budgets. Okay, especially say teenagers. Okay, yeah, you're going to do calculus and stuff, but like say if I'm at the shop and it's like, okay, I can buy a kilogram of this thing for this price, or I can buy 500 grams for that price. I would just naturally do a little bit of algebra, right? And go, okay, this is better value for money. All right, I'll buy 2 of the small one or whatever. But usually it's the bigger, it would be cheaper, right? But you can check prices like that and see what's actually good. And budgeting, like, all right, teenagers, here's the situation. You've just moved out. It's very exciting. You're living with your friends. All right, so choose who you want to move out with. And they go create groups. All right, great. Now you've got this much money, and this is the cost, your cost. These are your bills. These are your rent. Now figure out, do you need how much money do you have free for spending? You want to go on a holiday. You're wondering whether you need to get a new job in order to do it, right? Right. So you have 20 minutes to figure out if you need to get a new job, or if you'll already have enough money, whatever, some real situation which is actually going to happen to them where they can go, oh, I see why this is important. I need to know this. I want to go on holiday, whatever it is. So I think that'll just be one example, but these kind of vivid, engaging scenarios of why you need to know maths, because so many people in high school would be like, I just don't understand why I need to know this. And they're probably right. A lot of it they don't need to know. But certain things, I think everyone go, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. I understand why we need this. And for those who are more drawn to mathematics, if it can be made more appealing, more people will be drawn to it. And it creates metaphors for understanding the world, I think, or even like how people interact and stuff. You can kind of think, oh, it's kind of like, a parabolic equation, like a curve going up. The more you increase this thing, it doesn't just increase like the same rate. It gets better and better and better, like education probably. So just, if you have that fluency in mathematics, because it's made more accessible to people and more engaging and interesting, then there is also the secondary effect of, I think, it can help people kind of think in another way, model the world in their head in another way. So history, yeah, I think it should be kept very practical though. Like, I was talking to someone, I won't name you. Yeah, he's probably not listening, but who was recently, I was shocked, grown man saying like, I was like, when was, we were talking about history. He's like, oh, my history is atrocious. I was like, oh yeah, all right. He's like, but ask me some questions. Let's have some fun. Let's quiz me. All right. And I'm like, okay, so when did the Roman Empire fall? He's like, 1700s? That's like just a few minutes ago. What are you talking about? So that just the basics overarching sweep of, okay, these are the main events in history. You could teach that in an hour. And then the next class go, all right, put these in order. Here are some pieces of paper. It says Roman Empire, Greek Empire, Egyptian, Atlantis, or whatever, right? Put them in order, put them in sequence, right? If they get them wrong, okay, we're going to do it next class and see how you're going. And they're like, oh, I want to get this. Next class, they do it. It's pretty easy, right, to sort that out. Instead of going, all right, what happened in 1252? And, whatever, that can come later to those who are interested. Again, like maths, I think a lot of history, just get the basics, and also like how and why things change. For example, climate change, environmental crises. Seems like the Black Plague basically came from climate change. The Little Ice Age in Europe, the temperatures dropped. They were growing wine in like the north of England. Couldn't do that anymore. Iceland and Greenland, they were growing farming in Greenland. Now impossible to farm. There was a huge change. Crops failed. People got hungry. People's immune systems got worse. This plague swept through and killed a third of the people, up to I think 90% of the people in some villages. But that would be a useful thing to mention, like how history, the relevant factors in history, but just keeping it very general, and then give details later to those who want more advanced knowledge. But some sense of where we are, Imagine if you didn't know, what were you doing 5 years ago? Oh, I don't remember. I know what I did up until 4 years ago. That's fine. I don't care. That's already happened. Don't you think it's kind of relevant to where you're going and who you are and, what maybe you got right and wrong in the past? Maybe you want to try to get more things right in the future. And remember, where you've been, who you were, how you participated in the story of your life. Well, that's history. We're all humans. We're all connected to that stuff that happened, and it does affect us. And a lot of people are just quite oblivious to what happened. And even, the most well-informed historian is oblivious to so many things. So much has just gotten lost. Like, you may not realize, I don't know, perhaps you do. But like, I read this recently. I was like, oh yeah, it kind of reminded me, like, there are many things like, oh, this, famous play by this Greek playwright. Yeah, this is one of 3 of his 28 plays, which we still have. And all 3 of those are like among the best plays in the world that we have. It's like classic literature. But we're like lost. We have 3 out of like 28. What the hell? Like so much just slips through the cracks. And that itself, I think, is kind of interesting for people. A good lesson to be aware of. But anyway, all right. Point being, history has its place. So geography, again, similar thing. That's knowing your place in time, knowing your place in space, right? Okay, what are the continents, etc. Keep it simple. All right, once a month or once a week, just in maybe I was just a poor student at this age, but I don't really remember being taught geography at school. I remember very basic stuff, and I felt confused. I couldn't remember which is Africa. Is this Africa or South America? I couldn't tell. I, don't remember anyone coming and checking if I knew, but perhaps they did. I hope they did. So anyway, I had some basic education, but mostly my mum bought me a globe when I was 16, and I would just spin it and go, oh, what's the capital of this place? Oh, what's this? Oh, okay, and just learn it. So I think something basic like that is kind of would be a cool thing, and it's good for everyone to know. It's kind of fun, to know where you are, even for us adults or whatever. But that would be a basic thing you could test kids on, just and keep it fun again. But like, let's have a competition, who can get the biggest score or whatever. The top 10 scores in the class are going to get read out. All the others, no worries, don't worry about it. We're not going to shame you as being the worst. It's just the teacher collects all the scores of the quiz, and or the top 10 or whatever can compete, or it could be a bit of fun, or there's a prize or whatever. So, yeah. So now, and I do believe, I guess we'll talk about this later, but there is a place for competition in education, I think, and especially boys, it seems, most likely based upon evolutionary reasons of what helped us get here. Males tending to compete. It's a natural thing you see throughout nature, right? Just because we're more conscious, can think logically, doesn't remove those baser instincts. It's built on top of it, right? Like a city keeps building on top of itself, and it can't just go and totally change the underground sewers, right? It's like, no, look, it is there already. We just have to keep building on top. So I'm not comparing male competition to a sewer system, just for the record, at least not consciously. Yeah, so it seems like where you can have boys competing and having like a game out of it, it's easier to get them engaged, and thus they end up getting better educated, and that helps everyone, right? And of course, not just boys, but like as I've said, I think previously, like it seems like the usual kind of thing between males and females. Masculinity is mostly associated with males, femininity more with females, but there's exceptions, right? Kind of maybe 80-20 principle or something. It's always a minority who are more drawn to the other way or don't think that way, but there's these general principles. And I think, competition can be, a useful thing. It doesn't need to discourage, and in fact, it can be discouraging if no one's rewarded. When you're at that a younger age, I think, maybe as adults we think, oh, but you shouldn't need that as a reward to be the best. But maybe at a certain age we did. Maybe that was just a less sophisticated thing. But you have to go through it before you can kind of get to it, be an adult, and maybe understand that you can compete with yourself and just be better than you were yesterday. But perhaps, we need to keep these more basic traditional modes of, a bit of friendly competition, never hurt anyone. Science, I think, again, similar thing. Basic science, we don't, like some of the stuff you learn in high school or even primary school, it's just going to go way over your head. Why do you need to know this? It's kind of a way, wouldn't it be better just let these kids go climb trees? Wouldn't that be more educational? So I think basic stuff of like, okay, some stuff of physics, this is how things work, biology, or like, human biology, very important, like what's in your body, that makes sense to know. But keeping it very practical. And again, in high school, you can focus more on that, and those who are drawn to it can learn more about it. But to have a very basic idea, and very importantly, given that it's so, as we've seen over the last 2 years, scientists to some extent are regarded as the new priests. Pearly white coats, glasses, scientists and doctors have a very elite position in society, and they work very hard for that, and they do a lot of good, so they've earned that to some extent. However, if that's let go unchecked, then it can cause a lot of problems, because a lot of doctors and scientists have also caused terrible problems. And I would even say over the last 2 years, there've been, if you pay attention to, if you look at various different sources of information, and not just a monoculture of one, corporately owned media outlet, which may not tell you the truth all the time, or even most of the time, perhaps. If you're paying attention, then you will notice that, we're all just human beings. Science is, perhaps science could be a perfect system if if the scientific method is applied properly, but scientists are not perfect. So I think a very important thing, why I mention this, would be, as science, like, what is science? What are we learning here? What is this? Okay, here we go. This is the scientific method. We used to just say, the priest tells us this is what to believe, and we have to do it. And then we moved into this, and this is where science came from. Basically, the idea that we don't believe anything you say unless you can kind of give us some evidence. And sure, some things that we can't have evidence for. Does love exist? Well, there's no evidence yet, therefore it doesn't exist. Well, actually, that's a logical fallacy. Again, absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. So love could just exist, but we haven't got the measurements to notice it yet, or to put it in a little box. Maybe we never will. Maybe it's not even possible. Maybe that's just the nature of this phenomenon. But the point being that I think in education we should be making sure everyone's very clear on that. Scientists are not priests. They don't know everything. And scientists are wrong all the time. Science, when it's working, it is an ecosystem of competing propositions and beliefs. And someone says, I believe this is true based on this evidence I got from an experiment. And then we go, all right, other people try to replicate it. If they do replicate it, wow, yeah, you're right. Okay, it starts to spread. If they don't, hey, I didn't get the results. What were you doing in your trial? Then, it goes nowhere, right? So this is, again, a decentralized system for figuring out what is real, what is true, what the universe is, how it works. So I think that's probably more important than knowing, at what temperature does water change into ice or whatever. That's useful too. So keeping it practical, right? And not too much unnecessary detail, possibly like I'm giving you in this podcast. Bear with me, doing my best. What's this, podcast number 6? But as per what I was saying in the first one, just starting something new, right? Just doing my best. Hope, it's of use and benefit and interesting, but it's definitely enjoyable. So, bear with me. while we grow and get more concise and more practical in giving you the juicy information that your golden heart chakra deserves and is so hungry to swallow, like a flower from Super Mario swallowing the aforementioned Italian plumber. So, music, remember being taught music in primary school, and I think a little bit in high school, maybe very little. But I think, again, it should be more practical. Again, I'm sure people have different experiences of what they were taught, but I can just speak for myself. But I think music, definitely we should be learning. And so that's a great thing that I was taught, some amount of music. But most of my music I got from outside, private tuition. Shout out to Jared. Thank you, Jared, putting me on the road to playing guitar, and then just hanging out with friends who played music. And we would just have bonfires on the beach and play music. And, all these cool people are playing music. I want to do that more, right? So that's how I got there. But I think I don't remember this happening, but I think this would be really good, is not just, okay, we have choirs, everyone's singing together. That's cool. That's great. But stuff like, all right, here is a drum, here is a piano, you can play on the white keys and everything's going to sound good. Here's a harmonica, it's in the key of C, everything's going to sound good, it's impossible to hit a wrong note. You can clap your hands, you can sing. All right, it's basically impossible for you to make a mistake. Make it very easy. Make some music. And you're going to make some music, and you're going to make some music. At the end of the class, we're going to come and share what we've got, or maybe in the next class. Getting the creativity to flow instead of the teacher telling everyone what to do. And again, I think that's one of the biggest problems with education, or shortcomings, is, and this is the traditional way that my expertise of teaching English as a second language, which is what I do for money, right? Lots and lots of money. I'm like a billionaire from teaching English. You have no idea. No, not really. My expertise, the traditional way was, the teacher's telling everyone what to do and you're doing grammar exercises. That's actually a big waste of time. The teacher should be doing 20% of the stuff. The student's doing 80%. The teacher's just there to go, no, not that, this. And to set the boundary and go, no, don't go there. Stay on task. Don't talk about your boyfriend. All right, go back to the practicing. Or you want to talk about your boyfriend. You could talk about your boyfriend using the grammar. All right, you can. Yep, that's fine. Whatever, setting the boundaries there and giving feedback of, like, students are talking, you go, oh no, you mean this. Oh, okay, I mean this, good. But mostly students focused. That's the key to learning a language. And they can't do it on their own. They need the teacher, but the teacher is the facilitator. I think in many things in education, that's the way it really, the optimum way. Music class, kids, interacting with kids, sharing music, learning the joys of music. I think that would radically improve our lives if more people could connect to music. Most people I talk to don't say, oh yeah, I play an instrument. I think most people love music though, almost everyone. Also, like classes in listening to music, maybe, all right, your music homework for this week is to listen to Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan and write a 1-paragraph review. And we're going to post it on whatever, with the internet these days, you could do, like, post it on this page. Everyone can read each other's reviews. Or maybe everyone gets a different album to speed it up. And you read them, and then the next week it'll be, all right, you choose one of the reviews that for the other kids, and which of those, are you most interested in? And you will listen to that, and you'll write your own review. Do you agree or not to what they said? And that kind of thing, giving musical education, awareness of all the amazing music which is out there, and there's so much of it, and go through many different genres, etc. And people can start to see the music that they want to be the soundtrack of their life, and that can help uplift them. And because it can really modulate your emotions, and that modulates your thoughts, and that modulates your behavior, and that modulates your life and the feedback you get. So I think that music is a very powerful thing. And being able to play instruments, like if I'm in a great mood, I play guitar, and it just amplifies it. It's just even better. Whereas similarly, actually, if I'm in a bad mood, I play guitar and it transmutes the pain. It's like the blues, transmutes the negativity into something beautiful. It's like the acceptance and the understanding of that feeling of the rawness and the authenticity and humility of being in pain, and being able to pour it into a song. It's like recasting that poison into something that's undeniably beautiful. It's ordered, meaningful patterns of vibration, which we have thousands of years or longer have been heeding and organizing our lives around through music, with social ceremonies, etc. So, that's a great thing. If everyone had an instrument they could play, even if it's just harmonica, I'd say that'd be the easiest instrument to learn, by the way. Get a harmonica, diatonic harmonica, the normal ones is that what it's called, diatonic? Not chromatic. So it's not all the notes of the guitar. Like this. So, or if you want your kid to learn music, get them a harmonica to start, right? Say a C if you get a C harmonica, then if ever they're around someone with a piano, the person playing the piano just plays the white keys. You can play 2 at a time, 3 at a time, or just 1 at a time, and da da da, and just hit anything. And within 5 minutes, you'll start to naturally notice what sounds a bit better. But all of it's going to sound okay. None of it will sound bad. It's impossible because it's all in the key of C, or do re mi fa sol la ti da, whatever. Is that what it? And so the white keys, the piano is organized around the key of C. So the black notes are the notes which are only found in the other keys. So the keys of A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, right? But the key of C, just the white notes. That's the way it's organized, right? Now, so like a chromatic harmonica would be like all the notes, like of the piano, or all these notes, right? But a major scale would be like this. Whoops. Can't even play a major scale. Gah. Let's see if I can do thirds. I know, messed it up. That's all right. Anyway, so this is the major scale, right? And that's what a harmonica is. It's just got, if it's a C harmonica, it's just the C beginning on the note of C. It's all those notes. If it's A, then it's just in the key of A. But so here, this would be C, and you can, play around. That's soloing. That's all the same notes. That's all on a piano. That would be the white notes, right? So that's soloing, and you can do that. So something similar on a harmonica, and it's impossible to hit the wrong notes. Whereas on a guitar, if you hit the wrong notes, you could be. It's like, oh, you can hear it's not quite right, yeah. So yeah, so that would be basic. Anyway, point being, to bring it back, I think music should be kept as practical as possible, like these other things. And then on top of that, you can start to build. Oh, so you made your song, that was cool, but notice that bit didn't quite sound right. What if we change it to that note? Oh, that sounds better, doesn't it? Do you know why? No? All right, kids, let's study the major scale. This is what, and you can start to build off of the practical actions and activities of what's happening. Go like, all right, this is why this is relevant. This is why this is relevant, right? Just like life, where you go, I've got something that's not quite working, or I'm running up against some obstacle, and then education can help you understand it and overcome it, transcend it. And if we've got more practical education, then I think it's going to ground and make the relevance very clear to the students of what we're learning. And so, yeah, all right. So that'd be music. Also, languages, which would be another kind of traditional thing most of us learn in school. definitely very useful. However, again, more practical. So go, like I learned Japanese for 4 years, once a week. Uh, Arigatou gozaimashita, Ifla sensei. Um, Thank you very much, Miss Ifla. But like I forgot almost all of it, but that's, I guess, just I didn't practice. But but I don't think we were talking to each other in Japanese. I think we were just practicing learning the phrases. And this is really, if you can say, all right, we're going to learn some basic stuff about how to say, I like this, I don't like that. Here's a bunch of vocabulary with pictures. You know the phonics, so you know how to pronounce most of these things. If you make a mistake, your partner or the teacher will come and say, hey, you mean this, you know. But go, all right, here are your sheets, everyone. Here are the things. Talk to your partner. What do you like? What don't you like? And why? And why maybe is if possible. But at the minimum, just say what you like, what you don't like. Something happens to your brain when you're going, oh my God, I'm speaking Spanish, or I'm speaking Japanese, I'm speaking Irish, whatever it is, and you're actually using it with another human being, and you're looking in their eyes while they're talking this wacky language to you, and then you look at the pictures, oh, you mean this? Uh-huh. And yes, I understand. Yeah, I see what you mean. Uh-huh. And then you respond. There's a great joy and pride that comes with this, and a difficulty, a challenge, which is, I think, kind of can be addictive when you go, oh, like you're getting the mixture. It's like someone said, the ideal learning experience, it should be somewhere in the middle of, if it's too easy, it gets boring and it's not engaging. If it's too difficult, it provokes anxiety, and so it's not good. You disengage. Somewhere in the middle, right, where it's difficult enough but not too difficult, then you get that sweet spot, the golden zone of engagement and interest, and learning and growth. So I think languages, and I'm going to talk about this in another podcast, but learning a second language is a really great thing, I think. And so I think it's very cool just to be able to connect with people and say, like, oh, you know, how do you say thank you in your language? And then you, especially if you've been doing music, I think it's better. Your brain is used to listening to sounds and being able to repeat them. And so, but you know, you don't need music, but go, okay, and then practice that. And like, okay. And then next time you see that person, you're, all right, cool. And you say thank you in their language. They're going to go, whoa, we're connecting on a different level. Now we're into my world. I'm not in your world of English or whatever. Whoa. And you can connect more deeply. It's very cool. But then even like, that's a little thing, just learning snippets of other languages. But then being able to speak some level of another language, it really opens up your. It's like I say, like when I've kind of somewhat, you know, able to speak French, you know, and very far from perfect. But my experience of it was very interesting. That I compared it to going, like the astronauts going to space. They go to the moon, like, wow, we're at the moon. They're all looking forward to going to the moon. And they get to the moon, they glance over their shoulder. It's Earth, Mother Earth. Oh! And they were, apparently, I believe, they said they were kind of shocked to realize that they had been they were most excited about the moon and leaving Earth and, you know, transcending. But then they kind of, it's being in that new place made the Earth a new place. They really saw the Earth in perspective, and it was actually by far the most revelatory and transcendental and beautiful part of the experience was the Earth. You left Earth, and Earth was the most interesting thing that was part of your trip away from Earth. And with languages, it's a similar thing where you think you know English, and then you start to learn another language, and you go, what? Like, yeah, oh, okay. Oh, that's how that works? Okay. And it's a bit weird at first, and then you start to understand how to use it. And now that you have it's like dot to dot, it creates a line, you know? Now you have 2 points in space of the language space. Now it's like you understand, you see things in common between the languages, and those things in common, it's a little insight, a little brief peek through the curtains into the nature of language itself. And so you understand. By learning another language, by learning some French, I began to learn more about English, and I saw English in a new light. Or it's like when you go traveling and you come back to your hometown and it seems different, It seems kind of like the final stop. It's a new city. It's the final stop of your trip. Is because what's that thing like? No man crosses the, or maybe it's no talking monkey incarnated with a ray of the divine infinite consciousness. But let's say man. All right, no man crosses the same river twice, because it is not the same river and he is not the same man. So, like, things change, and so you come home and it's a new place. But anyway, languages, I think, very good for that. Just getting perspective on language. And then that can allow you, a very useful thing about that is for critical thinking. When people are saying, say, oh, this is natural. It's natural that this happens. You can go, well, what do you mean by natural? They go, well, natural is what it means. And if you don't need to have a second language to be able to do this, but it makes it easier to kind of notice things like this. Where you say, well, look, natural is just a sound, but it's a signpost. Like I could say naturel, right? And French people are like, what are you saying? That's not, you're not pronouncing properly. Anyway, but so these are two different words, right? Two different sounds. They're both pointing at the same thing. So the thing is not the sound. This is a symbol. It's a signpost. It's a symbol, something that stands for something else, right? The 5 rings of different colors stands for the Olympics and, international competition and cooperation through sport. So this points at this other meaning. So when you say it's natural, what do you mean by that? I think maybe your meaning of natural and my meaning are different. And you can have deeper conversations where you force them to rephrase it and go, well, I mean, it's just what everyone does. Well, yeah, okay, great. But then maybe we don't have to always do what we did before. So you can kind of have deeper conversations if you're more aware of language and what it is. Because we think through language, right? You have images in your mind, but largely it's the thoughts. You hear a voice in your head, and then you can share it with others if you want. Language is also incredible for traveling, right? You can, use these languages, connect with other people and, other places. You can also, it's just in general good for your brain. I believe there are studies where they've shown people who have study a second language at school, and properly, they have developed some fluency in it. They have better scores in other areas, in other subjects. And it seems kind of like you're going to the gym for your brain. It's quite difficult at first, but then gets very, very enjoyable. So you just need to get over that first hump. Same with music, right? There will be a few months maybe where it's work and it's difficult and it's maybe uncomfortable sometimes. Oh, do I really want to do this? But then just keep going. And eventually you're going to get into this territory where you get over the hill and you are able to start playing music that you want to hear. And, instead of just playing that song on computer or whatever, or a CD player, perhaps, or a vinyl, I would just play it on guitar. Oh, that's even better. Right? I'm part of the music, and you can play it. And then basically it's practice stops becoming work and it starts becoming play, and you're playing music, right? And then it's just easy, right? Like I don't need to force myself to practice. I just want to practice constantly because it's just fun. It's pleasurable, satisfying. So I think the same thing with languages. You just need to get into it enough, or anything, I think, get into it enough where you can start getting that feedback where it becomes a source of pleasure and a good addiction or obsession. So languages seem to be good for many reasons, but we need to teach them in a more practical way. And yeah. So let's see, what else? Art, similar thing, being able to draw, being able to paint. That's really cool. I think maybe especially when you're younger, that would be really good. In high school, perhaps that's should be optional. But I think it's a great thing. But maybe not everyone's as drawn to it as others. I would say music would be more important, really, because it's more therapeutic, more able to raise your vibration, transmute your stress, and you may have noticed there's a lot of stress in the modern world. But art's really great, and drawing. So I think that's a great thing to teach as well. But inspiring, maybe You could have things like looking at great works of art each week for 10 minutes. The teacher just passes around or puts paintings on the wall, pictures of paintings. Everyone goes around and says which ones they like or whatever. A bit of, awareness of that could be useful. Similar to reading, right? Getting these beautiful and useful thoughts from the past and visions into modern circulation so that we can have our own beautiful visions and thoughts more fluidly and easily. Okay, so that's kind of the subjects which I thought of, which you could find in more traditional education. Now, I would like to get into the stuff that you probably don't find in traditional education too much, and which I think whether it's for your kids, kids and teenagers who are in school, or if it's adults, like these are things which we can learn, and that it'll be happy days if we do. So let's see. Yeah, okay, practical philosophy. I think it would be a great thing to have learned. Like, I studied philosophy at university, and it massively improved my life. It allowed me to think more clearly and to understand myself and question myself. And one of the best things was critical thinking. I'm going to talk about in another podcast. But the ability to take in what other people say and to be able to understand and evaluate it. Like, how much does this make sense, basically? So someone, a brief example is like a syllogism, like A is B and B is C. Therefore, A is C. We know this, right? It's just like interlocks, right? It's just paper burns, trees are made of, you could say trees burn, paper is made from trees. Therefore, paper burns. Even if you've only seen trees burn, and then someone gives paper and you've seen that paper being made from the trees, then you know that the paper will burn, right? So that would be an example of like critical thinking working. And when someone doesn't quite follow the rules, you can notice it. Hey, well, you did that. I don't think that makes sense. And they might say, well, no, it does make sense because of this. And you can engage with each other, have a conversation about the merits and demerits of our attempts to use logic and clear thinking and arrive at truth. But critical thinking is one thing, right? Being able to organize your ideas properly and engage with others and understand who is organizing their ideas better, or who is got contradicting themselves, or etc. or whatever, or trying to make conclusions which aren't followed. There's missing premises in the middle, like, oh, you didn't prove that, or whatever. But also, like, so that's useful. But practical philosophy, I think, like, it would be great. Wouldn't it be great if kids, even very young kids, you say, all right, let's say you're really hungry and Johnny has 2 cookies and he's eating one of them and he's not looking at the other one. If you took it and ate it, would that be okay? You're really hungry. It looks really good. It's the best cookie you've ever seen in your life. And you might say, or might not, like, oh, and Johnny says you can't have it, or maybe Johnny's just distracted, right? And maybe a lot of kids would go, yeah, I'll take that cookie, sure, and go, well, why? Oh, well, I'm hungry. It looks good, yeah. And then, or even if this does happen, and then you make it a thing. All right, class, this, Jane did this to Kate. Now, they're a bit unhappy about it, but it's okay. We're going to talk about it. We're going to figure out this, but have these scenarios and then have all the kids in a circle go, all right, so you would take Johnny's cookie. All right. What if Johnny did that to you? Would that be okay? Oh, no, not if Johnny did it to me. Well, why? Well, because, right. You could kind of, these are practical ways. This is philosophy. Philosophy can be about what the world is, but science does a lot of that. But nonetheless, we still need philosophy. Science is nested inside philosophy, and there are certain questions of science which, like, say, the hard problem of consciousness, which is actually being addressed by philosophers, not scientists for the most part, but both to some extent. But so philosophy being, what do we know? How do we know it? The study of, means the love of wisdom, philosophy, right? But I think it doesn't need to. It seems so abstract. Oh, what's the meaning of life? Or what did it? But I think it can be made very abstract, and you know, some of my philosophy studies I was a bit, ugh, this is just so wordy and detached from practical normal life. And what's the point of some of this stuff? So I think it does need to be kept very practical and like, okay, what more important than what is real is what should we do? I think that's more important. It involves an awareness of what is real. You know, generally we only really need to know what is real so we know what we should do. I would think that would be my belief. And again, it's a bit of a philosophical question. Who knows the answer? But maybe we could talk about it. But I do feel that like rather than if someone could say, "Oh, Jamie, I'll let you know, direct download from the stars, exactly what you should do in life, how you should be for the benefit of all beings, right? How to align yourself with the loving, generous impulse, or I'll let you understand everything, and a bunch of that's not going to be relevant to you, but you'll understand like at the big level, like what's going on in the universe." I think, you know, maybe it'll be, oh yeah, that'd be interesting to know what's going on. But I think ultimately the wiser thing would be, well, what would I want other people to do toward me? Okay, maybe I should align myself with the whole, and which on some level is you're identifying with your greater self rather than your individual human self. You're identifying as I am a human, but I'm also my family. I'm not separate from my family. If I disappear, my family has become less, right? So I am my family. I am my community. I am my people. I am my species. I am the animal kingdom. I am life. I am the universe. And so that would be, this is what we should be teaching 5-year-olds. Absolutely. They're ready for it. But yeah, practical philosophy. And then, you know, as you get older, you can, you know, get into more esoteric stuff but the basic thing, like say what Epictetus, if you want an amazing book to change your life, or A Manual for Living by Epictetus. It's a translation by Sharon Lebel. It's a tiny little book, but it's incredible. These little paragraphs, some of them are like one sentence or 3 sentences, and they will blow your mind. They're just very, very useful, and they cut through a lot of the nonsense. And if you just flip that open once a day, as I did for a while, it can radically change the direction of your life, I think. Like it can really clear things up and help you reset to like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what's right, you know. So anyway, philosophy I think definitely has a place in education, a fundamental place, because it's how we know what we want to do. What should we be learning? And why should we be learning? What's the whole point? What we're doing in this podcast, this is philosophy, right? This is, so it's no good being, all right, we're going to study advanced mathematics and this and that and knowing how to make bridges and da-da-da, but then you don't focus on such things as whether war is okay, whether fighting's okay. Should you be, what's more important, having a pleasurable life or having a life, perhaps where a life of service? What's more, and I don't even know the answer to that. I mean, what's more important, following your joy or following your sense of service and how you can be most useful to the community? Perhaps it's both. Some people say follow your bliss, and then that's the way you're going to find what's good for you, and that's how your service comes through that naturally. So other people say, no, it's some kind of modern warping. Think about your people and do what's right, and then you will have fun doing it. You'll be happy, right? If you want to get out of depression, think of other people and try to help them get outside of your own negative feedback loop. Don't be narcissistic. So these are, you know, questions to think about. But yeah, so I think practical philosophy is very useful, and it probably will help us avoid a lot of conflict and navigate challenges much easier. You know, whether it's why we should study, like being able to get adequate motivation for studying, or, you know, many kinds of things. Understanding disputes with your friends and whether you should ditch your friends or whether you should stay with them. A lot of these things, you know, we get no guidance in school. Like, so this kind of leads on to social skills. I think is a very crucial thing we should be learning in school, how to deal with conflict with yourself and with others, right? Friendship, like how to make friends, how to be a good friend, instead of, and you're not, you know, falling for victim consciousness and being like, oh, I have no friends and it's all hard and poor me, going, well, okay, that might be true even, but does that help you? I don't think so. You gotta focus on what's going to get you good results and make you happy. And so, all right, how about I try to increase my value? And that can be an intense thing to think of. I'm not valuable enough. Well, maybe you're not. Maybe these other animals are naturally attracted to health and confidence and happiness, and maybe they've got their own problems and they don't need someone pulling them down. And maybe a change comes from within, and maybe some of these ideas could be very useful. To go, hey, be real careful about your own self-pity and narratives, self-serving narratives that let you feel hard done by. And yeah, so, and compassion is very important, of course, as well. But these are all the things which could be, I think, important to teach in school as social skills, how to engage with other people. When someone's being mean, or someone's saying things about you, trying to bully you, how do you deal with that? Well, one way would be humor. You act as if they're joking. Go, ha, yeah, very funny. And so they're either going to go, maybe they are joking, and they go, oh, good, you realize I was joking, haha, cool. Or whereas if you don't, they go, oh, I can't joke with this person. Okay, they're a bit fragile. Whereas if they are maybe subconsciously or consciously trying to intimidate or push their weight around, then you joking and taking it as a joke, they're going to kind of feel, okay, this person's got some skin, some strength. All right, maybe this isn't going to be a good investment in, trying to push my weight around. So that would be one example, just, assuming things are a joke in order to maintain your faithfulness with the person and a positive, connected relationship. And that's just one tiny little thing. And, there might be better ways to respond to this, and how and when to be assertive and when to kind of, turn the other cheek and let it go. The situations when certain virtues are important, like in this situation, what's the right way to deal with it? So these kind of social skills, I think, are incredibly important and will be more and more so as, the world goes through all the changes that we're seeing at the moment. I think, as technology evolves so quickly, and it forces our cultural and social systems to evolve very quickly. The ability to have finely tuned social skills and the ability to adapt and deal with other people is going to be a great premium on that. It's going to be incredibly important, and it is already. And so what else? So having that, let's see. Similar to that would be emotional mastery. So kind of being able to manage your own emotions and understand what you're feeling, and maybe teach kids to journal, or if you're not doing this, journaling is very useful. And writing about what you're going through. You can think about one thing at a time and you go through it like a movie, but when it's all together on a page, it's a bit more like a picture says 1,000 words, where you have it on the page and you can zip between the different things and very quickly have it all kind of in one frame, and you can read through what you were writing. Also, when you're writing, you kind of get into a flow, and things from a bit deeper down can start to churn up, bring it into awareness. But this can be very useful for being aware of, or you might notice, oh, I sound a bit like this. That's when I was writing, I didn't think like that, but now I'm looking at this, I'm not using any of my brain to create it. I'm just here reading it, which is easier, and some of that extra bandwidth, mental bandwidth, is kind of noticing, I seem a bit like out of balance this way. Or maybe you go, oh, actually, wow, I'm really like this, and that's actually a good thing. Yeah, cool, nice. Either way, you're getting feedback. And so that can be, journaling is very useful. But emotional mastery, like meditation, or being like, if you're really in the thick of things, just stop thinking. Try to get out of thinking. Go into your body, or do the Wim Hof method, which we'll talk about. Or laugh. Just make yourself laugh, or put on a funny video and just change your vibration. Get out. Drop down and do 40 push-ups. A lot of the time that energy that's running through your mind of like problems. If you exercise, you don't have the energy to be neurotic, and it just disappears, which is pretty cool. So things like this, if we teach people this when they're kind of perspectives are forming and they're in school, they're going to be able to carry this and make something out of it through before they're dealing with all these big challenges in life. And again, it seems like this is very human, empowering, like, for the sake of our human potential, like how is it that we don't learn, or at least I didn't, I think most people don't, as far as I'm aware, learn how to master and relate to your own emotions, how to celebrate yourself, and I guess part of it perhaps is that the previous generation, it hasn't been so much of a focus, and so perhaps the teachers weren't even there to do this work. But I think these days there's a lot of experts focusing and researching this kind of stuff, and it's spreading through the internet, people connecting, and knowledge growing about who we are, how we work, and how we can wisely kind of deal with it and integrate different practices to have most emotional mastery and to be skillful socially and engaging with other people and being part of groups. So that I think should, and again, this is something where if you haven't done that in school, well, let's get into it. Like, go online and look this stuff up. There's a lot of very simple things you can do which are really useful for improving your life. MMA, mixed martial arts, or just martial arts in general, right? Like I think it can be a great way, say, for improving your confidence, self-esteem, avoiding bullying. If everyone knows jiu-jitsu, for one thing, if you're learning jiu-jitsu and you're a bully, the people who are better than you, they're going to see that and you're in trouble. They're going to go, they're going to go rough on you. They won't hurt you. I think in general, I've never heard of this, but or they won't, injure you or something. But martial arts, they force humility because it's very difficult. You have to be very devoted and humble and open to learning, and it's like a metaphor for learning in general. So that can help you with your maths and your English or whatever. But the higher belts, they will help you if you are acting like cool. If you're being cool. If you're being a bit of an idiot, they're not going to want to give you tips and help you grow. They're not even going to want to train with you, and you're going to grow slower. And then you see some other person who is open and everyone's helping them and they're going faster. And you're going to go, I'm getting outdone here. Okay, fine. Maybe I just need to drop my ego, leave the ego off the mat, and so you can have an evolutionary pressure where this intense activity, which is very enjoyable, I must say. I have limited experience with martial arts, but very enjoyable so far. It can help put an evolutionary pressure, a selective pressure against unhealthy psychology, like bullying mentalities, or even things like neuroticism and being like afraid to do things. You go out there and you're rolling around choking and being choked and trying to, put people in arm locks and stuff. And you will go, wow, I survived it. I put myself through that. That's cool. And it builds your ability to keep doing more. And apparently psychologists, one of the way they deal with people who are afraid of things is not making them avoid it or not explaining to them perhaps partly it's explaining to them why they don't need to be afraid. But a lot of the time it's like, okay, look, for whatever reason you are afraid, let's expose you voluntarily. It must be voluntary, where they expose themselves slowly but surely to more and more and more of the scary thing, and they develop a thicker skin. They develop courage. So it doesn't make them less afraid, but it makes them braver, and they are able to deal with, speaking to one person, speaking themselves in the mirror, speaking to one person, eventually speaking to a whole room or whatever. And so martial arts can do a similar thing, where exposing yourself more and more to this demanding task. It's also good for physical self-defense. If someone is doing something they shouldn't be, they're trying to steal the phone off someone, and you're a black belt at jiu-jitsu and you got decent Muay Thai or kickboxing or something, you can just step in there and prevent that injustice from taking place. Whereas you could be a very well-meaning person, but without those skills, and what are you going to do? Are you just going to let that happen? Or if you go in, maybe you're going to get knocked on the ground and smack your head in the concrete, So if everyone knew martial arts, I think you wouldn't have a huge amount. There's a minority of people are kind of, I believe, immoral or really selfish and malicious. And so the there wouldn't be too many of those people. And in fact, if they went through martial arts training, I think it's only the most intensely off kilter, most malicious or kind of messed up, perhaps psychopaths, but they're doing martial arts anyway, a lot of them. I assume, I don't know. Freudian slip. Oh, now they know. But I think, if most of the population knew how to defend them, if we knew how to defend ourselves, it'd be or like you look at all these tragedies that are happening in America, gun violence, and a lot of them being on pharmaceutical drugs, and so it seems like there's a cultural problem with masking, putting a band-aid over perhaps psychological issues. I don't know. That seems to kind of make sense to me, at least. But that if people were more able to defend themselves, they might be more willing to kind of step in and try to stop some of these things. Okay, so that martial arts being useful for this, and for like young kids, if it's all right, the kids are getting a bit like restless, and wanting to run around, and they have to sit still. If it's like, all right, now you got an hour of jiu-jitsu training, then after that, that energy's burnt off. That could feed back into helping them do more brainy subjects. So I think definitely there's a place for martial arts and developing discipline, being able to show up on time again, and being able to learn, wow, I started off terrible and now I'm okay and now I'm getting better, and go, wow, okay, I wonder if that can apply to other things. And we keep going, and happy days, Also, it's a great way to keep fit, right? So leads us to health and fitness. I think I studied health in school, but I don't really remember it being too practical. I hope I'm not just being cynical here and forgetting the gifts I've been given, but I remember getting some human biology, but I don't really, I've kind of, and again, may have just been my school, but yeah, I don't remember a great deal of useful stuff. But basic in health, one of the greatest things we should all be doing, I think, is the Wim Hof method, which has been proven by scientists to be incredibly useful for many things. Basically, hope I'm not butchering it, but more or less, it's there's 3 pillars of it. There's breathing, where basically you're breathing a lot and you're filling your body with oxygen, kind of like a conscious hyperventilation. So filling your body with lots and lots of oxygen, and it makes your body alkaline instead of acidic, and it's very healthy for your body doing that. And you can even, after you do it, like say a round of breathing, you do 30 breaths. And more or less you're breathing in fully, but then just letting go. And so you're not breathing out fully. You're breathing in fully, but then just letting go. And it just breathes out maybe 70% or something. And so the air is getting into the bottom third of your lungs, which is responsible for 2/3 of the oxygen absorption. And so by breathing deep, it's good in general. We're learning how to breathe better, and that's good for daily life when you're walking around. Breathing better is good for your whole body, good for many things, your vision, good for all kinds of stuff. And it seems that most of us are kind of not really breathing too deeply and properly. So that would be a good thing most of the time. So you breathe deeply and then letting go again, almost like a balloon, blowing up the balloon, letting it go mostly, blow up again, going mostly. And you do that 30 times, and then you let go, and you just breathe out and keep it out, and just wait until naturally you need to breathe in again. And it's really crazy. You will go for the first time, probably 1 minute of no breathing, and you won't feel like you need to breathe because you don't. Your body's like, well, we've still got plenty of oxygen, so you don't trigger the breathing response yet. It's fine. We've got basically you've got a savings account of oxygen, right? And then you do it again. All right, now I need to breathe. You breathe in. Hold it for a little bit, 15 seconds or so, and then let go. Do it again. That's round 1. Do 3 rounds. That's the usual basic beginner's thing protocol. And after the second time, you'll be able to go for maybe 1.5 minutes with no breathing. And then the third time, 2 minutes or longer, right? You can go 4 minutes. I think the longest I've done is 4 minutes or 3 and something, and it feels great. It feels really good. and your mind is very clear. Your body feels very good afterwards. Of course, don't do this driving or like swimming or something, right? First, to get used to it, do it lying down or doing it sitting down, and yeah. So, but then with practice, you could do it, say, in the shower, whatever. But because you're more in tune with, like, you'll notice if you start to go, oh, I'm breathing a bit, because you can pass out if you breathe, if you take it too far. It's totally safe, but if you're sitting down, you might get sleepy and go, and you'll just stop breathing, stop doing the method until, oh, well, I kind of got too sleepy. That's pretty rare, but that could happen. So I could do it in the shower because I'm used to it, right? But you shouldn't begin doing that. So fair warning. So this breathing. Second pillar of the method is cold exposure, and basically cold baths, like ice baths. Athletes do this. It's very good for healing and for your body. Good for burning fat. You get and it changes your fat composition. You get more brown fat. Which is, as I understand it, it allows you to retain heat better and also just to manage your temperature better. So cold does less to you, basically, and I think heat does less to you. Or maybe it's only good for cold. Anyway, it's useful for you in managing with temperatures. And I would do cold showers, right? Turn on the cold shower, and cover everything, whatever, and then naturally you'll be doing deeper breathing, which is how Wim figured out this method. He was going into icy cold water, and he noticed he was breathing very deeply naturally to manage with it, and then he kind of started to develop it into a more methodic thing. But you go in the shower, you get all cold, and at first it's really intense, but if you keep doing that every day, you'll start to notice, actually, this is feeling amazing. And if you're in a bad mood, another little hack for getting out of a bad mood, go take a cold shower. And even it's just 30 seconds of cold, and then, or whatever, and then turn it on to hot, right? And then at the end, I would turn it on to cold again, just to finish. Good for your body and whatever, and waking you up. But you will become more kind of conscious and like more aware, and you will naturally, in my experience has been, and many people, is it just massively boosts your mood, improves your neurochemistry. So it's like alchemy. You're able to transmute your pain or your bad vibes, whatever it is, into a more useful and happy frame of mind. So that's really cool. And good for, and then the third part's a bit more mysterious, but sometimes he calls it willpower, or I guess, what else? Commitment, I think he's called it sometimes. But it's more about, I believe my understanding is it's more about applying the power of the mind, right? And for example, your ability to, the cold shower, you're going to go, okay, that's enough, let's stop. But then you might overwrite and go, why do I really want that thought to be running my life? Let's see if I can go another 10 seconds. Or you might go, oh, today I don't think I need a cold shower. I'll just go warm. And you might do that. And then after a few days, you might go, what's this thought doing? And what other trouble is that thought causing in my life? Let's try and change that pattern. And you resist it. And you go in and you have the cold shower and you feel great. And you go, thank God I overruled that thought. And so that's, I think, an example of the method is, especially the cold exposure. You're dealing with a very tangible thing that humans don't really like usually. And so that forces you to transcend it. And in turn, that's empowering the same circuits in your brain, which are going to help you overcome other obstacles. So it's a metaphor, and it's literally a precursor to other advances you can make in your life. But so anyway, that kind of thing, breathing, cold exposure, and mind power, basically. This method has been studied, and it's got a lot of benefits. And I believe it's being put in place in schools in some places, at least. But I think all around the world, like, that would be an amazing thing, a tool to give kids, teenagers, and adults. You can go on YouTube and find this stuff and do some rounds of breathing with them, and you got to do it. It's like, how could you go through your life without having that experience? It's a beautiful, cool. It's like never drinking coffee or something. Like, are you sure you want to do that? Come on, have some fun. And it's very healthy. So fun and healthy. So that's part of health. I guess also things like similar to that, meditation and yoga, right? Learning how to turn off your mind, or like quieten your mind at least. That's very good. If that's a bit out of reach for you at present, start with yoga. where you're moving your body. It's like a moving meditation. So, excuse me. So you're stretching out your body, you're developing core strength, and all the ligaments and everything is getting tested and stretched and developing, and it's being practiced. So it's not atrophying; it's growing stronger. But you're also following your breath as much as you can, paying attention to breathe out, breathe in. This helps you do yoga better. There's some positions where you could do yoga for 15 minutes. Start easy. That's the great thing. Everyone can do it. Even if you've got mobility problems, you could be doing this on. There's always some slight movements you could be beginning with, and then that'll open the door to less slight movements, with kind of bigger movements, and keep going down that road. You can heal yourself to a large extent, I believe. But if you go, if you do a proper big yoga class, you could go for an hour and a half, and say in the last 15 minutes, some of the things you're doing there can be pretty intense, and your brain is going, I can't do this. Let's stop. And you need to push through that. So again, similar to the Wim Hof method with a shower or something, it can be very useful for getting more self-control, but which is beneficial for your whole life. But discipline equals freedom, says Jocko Willink. The ability to control yourself is freedom, right? So we think of discipline from outside being the opposite of freedom, people telling us what to do. But the ability to tell yourself what to do, who's the self and who is the teller? The person telling the self would be like your higher or deeper self, right? Your ability to really set the agenda rather than the automatic programs you've inherited through evolution setting the agenda. So yoga, you need that self-discipline, and the breath helps you do it. So connecting to your breath helps you turn off the mind and just kind of, and it breathing empowers the body. The more oxygen, it's like the more powerful your body can perform. And you get more alkaline, so it's easier. And then you'll notice at the end, of the yoga, you often do shavasana, like corpse pose. You just lie on the ground, basically. And you will notice there's no thoughts often, and it takes a while for the thoughts to come back. And so that's an experience of meditation, where you're getting into meditation. So yoga is a moving meditation, more or less, union. It's connecting with the universe, realizing you're not separate. But part of that, what we call yoga, is just the surface level, the tip of the iceberg from what, the yogis in India were doing and are doing. But it's a way of kind of getting outside yourself and kind of connecting. And part of that is, getting less in your head and more into your body, and through that into the world. And so that's very useful. Something that I think we could, and it avoids a lot of injuries. Like people who do, say, martial arts, like people who do yoga swear by it and say, like, this, helps you with your flexibility, etc., but also avoiding injuries. You're working out, you're doing, which is another thing I think we should be teaching, training, like how to work out your body, cardio, doing running and swimming or whatever, but also, if you want to develop muscles, how to do that, what push-ups should you do, which work out which part of the body, etc. But people who do martial arts, they will use yoga to avoid injuries as well. So all of these things, I think, if we're learning them from school, like, why aren't we learning that? Like, why are we learning, some crazy thing about like sedimentary rocks or igneous rocks or the different types of rocks before we're learning how to take care of the body, which is the basis for all health, for all mental activity. If you don't have health, you can't really think properly, right? There's the mind-body connection. It's two sides of the same coin. So I think that's something we should really be trying to bring into schools and into our own lives if we are adults and, outside of the school system. There's no reason why, when you realize education is really just, when we see it clearly as what it really can be, it's not some dry, boring thing, but it's this expansion of our potential, then through gaining understanding and gaining skills, then it's kind of irresistible not to include these things in our lives. Like, why wouldn't we? I mentioned say kids doing like in class, doing like push-ups or like sit-ups and stuff. I think they should, it should be on offer. Like, everyone should know how to do it. But then say some people don't want to really do it that much. They don't want that kind of body. They just want to, they're not interested in, they don't want to do all that work. It's still beneficial for them to know how to do it should they ever need to in future. Like, oh, okay, I need to lose some weight. All right, let's, or whatever it is, or like, I'm going to go on a run for charity or something. All right, oh yeah, remember all those things you learned, back in school? All right, let's pull out that knowledge and let's apply it and let's get in shape. And also just the awareness. I think a lot more people would be into exercise if they realize, like, on the other side of, a set of push-ups and sit-ups or whatever, or leg raises or squats, is a great feeling of I did it, and also that the kind of the boost, the mood boost you get after, like you feel better, you just feel nice, chemically. And so perhaps one thing in school would be, you could say, all right, everyone, beginning of the class, anyone who doesn't want to do the exercise, you can just wait there and stretch, or just sit down or meditate. Everyone who wants to do it, please come up here. We're going to do some push-ups, sit-ups, etc. So there's no shame. And the people who are doing it, the big smiles on their face after, other people go, oh, actually that looks kind of fun. So I think that's one possible way to integrate it without making anyone feel intimidated. Another thing is, like, sport in school should also be really fun. You want to make people want to do it. So dodgeball, we always loved playing dodgeball in school, and they almost never let us. We're doing some other boring thing. Like, why? Why don't you, or if some people don't want to do dodgeball, all right, when you get them together and go, all right, everyone, what do we want to do? Let's do some sport. Are we going to do hockey? Are we going to do basketball? Are we going to, what is it? What are we going to do? Or maybe some people who don't want to do sport, I guess that could be an option at a certain point, right? Once they know the basics. Go, all right, you know the basics. If you don't want to do sport, that's your choice. But yeah. So, okay, what else? Life skills. Okay, so I think there's a lot of basic things which we really should be learning, and I suppose it used to come from the family, but maybe there's broken homes a lot more these days, and also people are busier these days. It seems more people are working, so perhaps that's part of what's happened, or we're just more distracted with all the beautiful gadgets and stuff that can give us so much pleasure and entertainment. I don't know what it is, but like I remember working in as a kitchen hand at some point, and the guy said, all right, so what was it? I think he was saying sweep the floor. Was it sweeping the floor, or else it was I think it was mopping the floor. And I was like, I don't know how to do it. You don't know how to mop? I think he was an Indian guy, and he was just like shaking his head at me, like these freaking white people with their privilege, like, but he was a great guy. I think, was that Rahman? I think Rahman Preet, great guy. I learned a lot from him. So, but yeah, so he taught me how to mop, but I was like 18 or 17, and I should really have already known that. I think in the moment I was like, yeah, why don't I know that? What's wrong with me? So some basic things I think, we could, and I would think should teach kids and teenagers are cooking. I learned some cooking, but basic stuff like, all right, doing tests. All right, how do we cook a pasta? Who can tell me? No one. All right, so put on that scene from The Godfather. He's like, what you gonna do? You're gonna fry some garlic, then you're gonna put in the tomatoes, and whatever. But fry some olive oil or butter in the pan, put in the garlic, put in the onions, then put in the capsicums. Shout out for capsicums. People don't understand what that is outside of Australia, it seems. And then okay, you put in the tomatoes when it's kind of run down, etc. How to do a pasta, how to make a nice sandwich, how to make a soup. Very basic things. Like I did cooking, but it didn't seem very methodical, and didn't seem like there was any testing or to check that we had learnt it. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm good enough, whatever. So I think that would be very useful if people can say there's a hypothetical guy, right, who's met a lovely girl he's really interested in, and he wants to make her he's trying to impress her, show her that he cares, and, I can't cook. It'd be cool. But if he was able to, have that skill, show you're caring, cook some food, offer it, that's a great thing. And it just in general, it's a great thing being able to cook and it makes you look good. It's good for your prospects in trying to navigate life. Maybe you're at work and, oh, there's some lunch I made. Oh, you're a good cook. Interesting. All right. That's point your favor, right? And just in general, it's cheaper being able to cook. You can, save money, etc., make it healthier. So less wasteful for the planet if we're less takeaway stuff being, or whatever. Unless you're going to a restaurant, I guess. But anyway, so basic cooking skills would be good. And also similar to that, gardening. I mean, that's maybe less necessary, but like the ability to know how to grow plants. Like I love plants, and I think they really make you happier. So that would be a great thing to offer students. Again, they don't need to keep it, but at least they have the choice. It's like I think a great thing to do is exposure to different things. So, hey, here are a bunch of things. If you're into it, you can keep doing it, but we're going to do a critical mass of it. You're going to learn violin for 2 months. And then it's up to you. Do you want to stop? Okay, but now we're doing something else. What do you want it to be? I don't want to do anything. Sorry, not on the cards. You're going to do this. Or maybe the parent want to allow that, then that's fine. But a possible way would be, which I think I would be quite happy with that, to be honest, myself, if I'd been told, all right, you're going to do this now. You don't have to keep doing it, but we're going to keep going through stuff, and you're going to find at least a minority of it, which you love, and you're going to be really happy that you found it, that we were doing this exercise of exposure. And so, yeah, offer how to garden, how to keep plants alive. And part of that could be growing food, and then, which is also a really fun thing, and another way to cut costs, and to be more financially self-sufficient in future. I've some ground outside. All right, put in with me and some friends for a few weekends, whatever. We put in a little bit of work, hanging out, listening to music, de-weeding it. We know what to do, and then we plant everything, and then there's almost no work after that, right? You do that first input, and then you have a bunch of tomatoes. You've peppers. You have chilies. You have kale. All this extremely healthy stuff, and and knowing how to use the scraps, make compost, that kind of stuff. Like, these are very useful skills, don't you think? Isn't that more important than knowing the difference between igneous and sedimentary rock or whatever? So, now what else? Laundry, knowing how to do laundry. A lot of people don't know, right? So we should probably learn that, right? Cleaning, like how to, sweep properly, right? How to mop. Maybe even stuff like how to use bleach safely, or whatever, or whatever. But just the basics of being able to do this stuff, which is a very important skill. If you want a job, you need to be able to know these things, right? Or even just for your own house, right? Ironing, knowing how to iron a shirt, right? Like, I was never taught that, but almost every man is going to have to do that. And I suppose women too, right? Like, yeah, all of us. Your clothes, there's going to be times when you need to iron your clothes. Why aren't we learning that in school, right? I suppose it must be the implication that your family's meant to tell you. And perhaps that's fair enough, but perhaps we should be making sure that everyone knows. Some people perhaps don't have, as an equality thing also, some people, perhaps their families aren't going to teach them, or don't have the time to teach them or whatever. Tying a tie, I guess you can just go on YouTube and learn, but, that's something could be useful, or whatever it is. If we want people to be healthier, right? Bicycles and, people talking about the overuse of cars and stuff. What if it's on offer? Like, okay, or everyone knows perhaps, where you learn, okay, how to use a bike, right? These are the gears. How to use that perhaps is obvious. Maybe I had to have my friend Brashan teach me when I was like 16. Thanks, buddy. Anyway, but like, say, how to manage a bike, maintain a bike. So how to pump up tires, how to change a tire, how to put the chain on again, how it works. That wouldn't take a lot of instruction, right? But that is incredibly useful, being able to take care of your own bike. And that's a skill, which brings me to the next point. So these are some basic skills, and I'm sure there's other ones, but that kind of thing, like keeping it very practical, I think stuff like that could be great. Like, you could have a little class where it's just miscellaneous life skills, and there's a place for, I think I had a thing called Life Tech, which was terrible in high school, where the basic was like goal setting and stuff, but it was so dry and boring. And the teachers they didn't seem to be any more enthusiastic than the students. But I think there is a place for that, like setting goals and stuff, but it should be much more practical and real. Again, like, okay, what goals do you have? All right, let's make some goals. In a month, we're going to check back and see how you did on those goals. And then maybe like, oh, I better make some progress on my goals because other people are going to hear about it. I'm going to talk about it. So that would be, again, making it more practical, less just like ticking boxes, less dry and abstract. So saying the skill of being able to maintain a bike, that could, then you want to make money instead of working McDonald's. Oh, maybe I can work in a bike shop. Or if you know how to grow food, maybe you can grow food and sell it to someone on the street, or just walk around selling watermelons, at the cart. Get your watermelons, right? Just wander the streets. Or, you go work in a greenhouse. Say, oh yeah, I've got this experience. I know how to grow this. And apart from the fact that you grow your own food, when you're on your own, you're spending less money, right? But or other things like say learning, teaching how to teach English, right? I learned the basics of how to teach English in a 5-week intensive course, which is CELTA, which I recommend. Very good, very practical. But basically, you could do through, say, in high school, if we taught people how to teach, that could be one thing on offer. Like, okay, skills which can, give you money, right? Allow you a foothold where, say, you're between jobs, I can go teach English, or I can travel and I can go live in a foreign country and teach English for a little bit. These are things which would be very useful, but, it's not at all on the table in any school that I'm aware of. But I think that could be very useful. And to be able to give people, even they do that while they're at university, and they can be funding their way through university instead of being a waiter or something. You can teach English or fix bikes or something. So some practical skills. I think it just seems like overall there's a lot of room for just kind of going for the low hanging fruit. So what else? My beautiful, extremely attractive, patient listener or watcher. So let's see. Tutoring other students, like anyone who's going through high school, and you're really good at maths, you're really good at English because you've been practicing to get the scores. If there was like a system where you're like encouraging people, this is how you can do tutoring, this is how you would manage the invoices, or these are some basic things about how to run it and some places where you can do it, and just try to, as a money-making thing and as an empowering thing for self-confidence, career progression, independence, to say you've graduated and now you could tutor the year behind you, or the 2 years or 3 years behind you. That, again, something practical. Careers advice would be useful, but I mean, a big part of that could just be like this low-hanging fruit of, these are some ways you can make money in the meantime, and have a feeling of dignity. Like, yeah, you're moving up in the world. You're kind of offering value to people. So, all right. So that's about the details of some parts of things where I think education isn't really covering. And I'd say, yes, back to especially social skills, emotional mastery, and practical philosophy. Like, how should I live, and learning the skills to be able to engage with people and figure things out, because you're going to inevitably encounter problems which you're not prepared for. And so if we can teach people, if we can learn how to learn, right, then that's like a stem cell, right? Whatever wherever it's needed, it can turn into a neuron or turn into a liver cell or whatever it is. We will have more ability to respond appropriately to life. If some of these basic, almost too simple aspects of education are tended to, Alrighty. So now, balance between there's a balance between discipline or standards, right, and kind of encouragement or fun, and helping people participate and enjoy it with education. So I think that's a tension that's always going to be there. But I think it is important to have standards and to do testing and to check, are we learning? Oh, everyone failed that test. All right, we need to do that class again. Apparently, I thought they had learned that, but they hadn't. All right, we need to do it again. So testing is important for that. And also, okay, who should get, this university can only afford pragmatically with resources to have 100 people in this course and there's 1,000 people applying, who should get in there? Well, the way that's going to make the society function best is a meritocracy. Whoever is a combination of the most gifted at it and the most hardworking, that kind of combination between those two variables, those people will get it, right? They through testing, we see who's better, right? So I think testing is very important, and standards. And if we don't have that, then the standard, like we're all going to suffer because society's, not going to be as functional. And if the thing is, if you're not good at something, say you're very hardworking, but you're just not talented at something, well, no problem. You're going to be talented at something else, right? Everyone's got something. You just need to find your spot. So you go, the testing, and I'm at the very bottom of the ladder at this thing. Okay, well, maybe that's not my pathway. Maybe I just got saved from some excessively difficult path, and I can find something where I'm just going to be more suited to it. So, but I think with the teaching, it's definitely important to encourage. So, there's a balance there where you do need to ensure that it's an enjoyable thing and it's not too brutal. And I guess it's a philosophical thing. Some cultures are more about standards and discipline than kind of the encouragement side of things. Say Eastern cultures, like some of the Asian students that I teach, like I kind of realized, like, oh well, this is not just a stereotype. This is definitely like a cultural thing. We're very driven to work very hard and study much more than say I did growing up. And there's some benefits to that, but I don't know. Is it better than say the more traditionally say Australian way where you're like, or perhaps Western, I don't know, where it's a bit less intense and kids are more encouraged to have fun as well as doing their learning. I think ultimately the only way we can really figure out a lot of these problems of like philosophy where we don't really know the answer is we run a bunch of experiments. And okay, Australia is an experiment, Korea is an experiment, France is an experiment. We're all doing different ways in different cities. If we can encourage a lack of homogeneity and kind of we encourage diversity of different protocols, and people can, I want to go to this school where they don't focus on this or that. They're kind of doing this kind of thing more than that. Or in this school, they believe certain things about history, and they're controversial because their history curriculum is different. The principal has a different view of things, and so they've got some flack for that. But I happen to really agree with that. Okay, I'm going to put my kids in there. If there's more diversity, people can find, or they don't talk about sexual education. Yeah, that's for me. I don't want my kids to, or whatever it is, or I'll handle that. I don't want the school talking about it. All right, whatever it is, for many reasons. If there's a variety of curricula, different things being taught, then in different schools, neighborhoods, cities, countries, then and even like whole cultural areas, regions, then I think we can see what works and what doesn't work. And so this is like a long running scientific experiment in figuring out by trial and error the answers to the things that we can't figure out through logic and conceptualization alone. So again, that would be one reason why I think having one huge monolithic standard system of education, say as often happens through government, is a bit of a problem. And I think it's definitely an open question, like what kind of role government can have in education. But I kind of lean toward, and I'm definitely open to other opinions, I don't really know, but I lean toward thinking that if all the tax that we pay that goes toward education, if we didn't pay that and we kept all that money and we used it to pay for private education, and then there would be a lot of people who would go, okay, in 10 years' time, they're phasing out public education. It's going to be private. So that's a big business opportunity. There's going to be a lot of people who need schools. How about this? I'm going to do a deal. Hey, government, I'm going to buy this school off you, or whatever. Or I'm going to get some office somewhere and start small, but I'm going to start providing for that need. And I'm going to make money doing that. It's a business opportunity. Great. I need to feed my family. All right, awesome. I'm going to start a school. And a similar thing would be reducing regulation on that. I think it's too much red tape. Like, it prevents a lot of positive things that could come from this. Like, why don't we just run your school? If it's not good, you're going to disappear through bankruptcy. People aren't going to go to it if it's not good. So I think we need much less regulation, because although it can be well-intentioned, you're robbing people of so many services, like you say, the private schools that could be open, not like very expensive ones even. If there's a huge demand for it, you'll have some expensive ones, some very cheap ones. Most will be in the middle somewhere, just like any product that's offered in the free market or service. And so I think less regulation and less taxation, if it was an intentional program where we test it out, let's try to phase out, maybe we keep some public education, but let's just decrease the scope of it, and try to, look, that would be a messy thing. It'd have to be figured out very carefully. But just as a thought to mention here in this podcast, like I think that could offer good results, where we can have a great diversity of schools and approaches, and the ones that are better, they would outcompete the others and start to grow. Other schools that don't work, it would go bankrupt, and so, oh, there we go, it didn't work, and then the bigger ones, oh, we're making a lot of money, we can start second schools, they spread, or someone who works for the successful ones, they learn a bunch of useful stuff, they go off and start their own schools, or they go and buy one of the failing competitors and start their own thing. You have an ecosystem where things can evolve, just like they do with the microphone I'm speaking into. No government program to make that. Or, and again, I'm not here to be like ideological and against government at all. I think it can work. I was educated through government schools. I got a lot of benefit from it, but I just noticed there are a lot of shortcomings, and that some teachers aren't very motivated, and they know they can't get fired. And there's a lot of where things don't go right. There's no real reaction because what are you going to do? It's free. You're just going to take it. And in some cases, it's the only school there is because, well, the market's flooded with government schools. Who's going to compete with a private school? It's very difficult. But if the government wasn't there, perhaps there'd be a range of schools offering different education, and we could see what we want, and we could have a lot more freedom and potentially better results. And yeah, teachers aren't working well. Oh, sorry, you're going to have to change or you get fired. Or a school's not working well. Well, you're going to have to change or you're going to go bankrupt. So that would be something, a little food for thought, my dear companions. What else? Yes, so I think, but just in general though, the main point being a diversity of experiments of how we teach can be very useful. We can figure out what works, including, say, the balance between encouragement and kind of standards, setting strict standards. A similar thing where there's a tension would be the balance between indoctrination and kind of benevolent instruction or guidance. Say, what is the line between saying, okay, well, here's the way. I think a lot of things aren't controversial at all, but there'll be many things where it's like, well, okay, why did World War I happen? Why did World War II happen? So history, what's happening? Or science. Say some people like, sex is a social construct. There's no difference. And then maybe other people don't believe that and think, well, actually, no, I think that there actually is. We're all souls, so we're all, consciousness, we're all the same. But there's this virtual reality suit that we're walking around in. And, there is a difference. And it affects the way you think and you experience and feel or whatever to some extent. Whatever, people can have their, there is that balance between, the ideas you're putting forth, are they kind of, too assertive and you're kind of telling people what to think? But if you don't do it enough, then maybe kids, they love structure, right? They're like, what do I do? You're telling me it could be this or it could be that. I just want to know what it is. So perhaps it's better to say, okay, well, certain things, we need to limit the amount of information so you can digest it. Unlike this podcast, right? So certain things like, okay, this is the leadership of this school. We're saying this is what we believe. And so certain of the things, it's like when you're teaching English, certain things where there's a bunch of exceptions to a rule. At a certain level, you just teach the basic thing. You don't mention the exceptions, right? And so in a way, you're lying. You're like, this is how we use this verb tense. And you could say, well, actually, except here, here, and here. But you don't, because then they wouldn't learn anything. It's too much. So you give what they can take at that point, right? And then later on, you go, by the way, actually, we need to tweak the rule. There is an exception here. And so I think with a lot of things in education, like we just do the best we can. There's going to be some amount perhaps of indoctrination where you're saying things which you believe and maybe you don't have all the information on it. No one does. But it's just trial and error. We're doing our best. And if you have that pure intention of, I just want to uplift these students and uplift this planet and just give a good educational service here, acknowledging humbly that it's not perfect, then I think that spirit can go very far. And as children get a bit older, you can tell them like, all right, so you can start questioning things like, how do you know what I'm telling you is true? You know, if I wasn't telling you what was true, wouldn't I also pretend that it was true? Why, if I, are there any people in the world who misguide people and they intentionally try to indoctrinate? Do they exist? Do you remember history class? Oh yes, right. This does happen. There are totalitarian regimes or communist states or whatever where it's like you get shot in the head if you disagree with things. And it's very strictly controlled, the flow of information, in order to maintain political power, etc., or ideological supremacy. This happens. How do you know it's not happening here? Getting kids and teenagers, etc., or adults perhaps, to think about this stuff is important. But I think, I think the ultimate idea would be like a culture which balances humbly acknowledging that our imperfections and encouraging and trusting students to say, hey, consider that these Marxists are correct. Go think about it. I don't know. I don't think they are, but you should consider it. And then you're either going to come to better reasons why you think no, that's not actually correct. That it's a bad approach, or you are going to maybe learn they're actually right about a few things. Interesting. Or maybe you're going to get confused and you're going to believe in some nonsense, but then you're going to eventually find your way home. And I think or not, but I think most people will find their way home, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. That's what human beings do. We're very good at overall decentralized system of figuring out what's what. And sure, there's a lot more novelty and information these days, so perhaps, I don't know, perhaps we won't be able to manage it. But I do believe the best solution is giving people the keys to the kingdom and saying, look, this is how to use critical thinking. This is what I'm doing. So, if it's not good enough for me, if it's good enough for me, which is the source of what I'd be indoctrinating you with, why wouldn't it be good enough for you? Because you're younger? Well, look, you're not going to get to my stage of sophistication and ability to know what's what if I don't trust you with saying, hey, question everything, question what I say, and don't believe anything if it doesn't make sense to your own intuition, which the Buddha was saying, right? Or your own common sense, which is what, he's onto something when he's saying, don't believe anything anyone says, including me, unless, it makes sense to your own common sense, your own understanding. Like, interesting. You seem very fearless. Perhaps you're actually onto something rather than just trying to control me. Whereas when someone says, well, these people are full of misinformation, you've got to be very careful. That's a bit of a Freudian self-disclosure there of like, whoa, maybe not. Maybe they're just well-meaning and a bit confused. But I would, from my perspective, I'd say it's an unhealthy culture. Like, it should be, marketplace of free ideas. That's what I was taught. We live in a democracy and pluralistic, open society, but with diverse viewpoints embraced, etc. But say someone was, misinformation, be careful. I think a lot of the time that's actually the people you need to be careful about. They're saying, oh, don't believe them, just believe what I say. Well, why you seem a little bit insecure about the foundations you're standing upon. That's interesting. When the Buddha says, don't believe anything I say unless it makes sense to you, why would he say that? Oh, presumably because he's extremely confident that it's true. That's not, like, cult leaders don't say that. That doesn't work very well. It screws up all their plans. So, yes. So I'd say, there is that balance to be struck between you do need to say, to some extent, and even when people are teenagers, say, look, yeah, there's arguments to the contrary, but this is what we really believe, that the leadership of this school really believe that this is the case, so that's what we're going to teach you. If you're interested, you can look up alternative stuff online or and here are some books that these are the people have written about it or whatever, But yeah, so just like with yourself, you need to give your case and acknowledge that your own limitations, but say, honestly, this is what I believe, while balancing it with the humility to know you could be wrong. And that would be fine, Truth is the important thing. So, yes. All right. Now, so part of that, I think, would be also like the state versus private schools and even homeschooling. I think, personally, my belief would be more private institutions, and homeschooling would be a good thing. And I think that would counterbalance some of what I would consider as inadequately contextualized information that we are given, and selective education and things that are just not true. These days in school, it seems like there's a lot of crazy stuff being taught. From my perspective, it'd be pretty crazy. And so I think that's one thing for us to be aware of, and perhaps there could be a conversation eventually about, do we really want, how big do we want the state to be? I would say definitely at this point in time we want a state. I'm not an anarchist, although I think perhaps eventually, if we're more evolved consciously, that could be possible. But I would go more libertarian side of things, kind of just have the state, but just make it a bit smaller, give it less money, it's doing less things, and then all those people and all that money is freed up to do stuff on the free market, which is usually more effective for getting what we all want, which is we can all be happy, healthy, strong, and wise, and just try to improve prosperity and peace, etc. So that would be one thing, which I've already mentioned. But I think, why did I raise that again? Part of that would be, I think, it's not, you could have it even with schools now, like, public schools, but I think it would naturally happen more with, if there was like more diversity via, this decentralized system of, private institutions doing education, some small, some big, some expensive, some cheap, etc. Whatever would be, but we could still do it with the current system, would be to have a system of debates and civil debates where we can say, all right, we believe this, you believe that, let's talk about it. Or you have these different schools which have a different philosophy and there's some controversy. All right, everyone, let's televise this or stream it online. Let's have a conversation. We're going to have, 5 hours. Make it long. Make it like a Joe Rogan podcast, Get into the nitty gritty, and we're going to talk about this issue, and we have our team from this school, your team from that school, or whatever. Or you could just have, people can post debates on a forum, and anyone who wants to accept the debate from the other side, agrees or whatever. And we do them, and, they're televised, or have a social media app that does this or whatever, but the point being that we have debates and we question ideas and we get used to, and I think we really need to find our way home to this, because we had it and it gave us so much, but we've clearly been losing our way with more censorship these days and an unwillingness or inability to consider alternative opinions and narratives instead of seeing them as a threat to be shut down by force, because you know best, right? So I think learning to debate and that's going to be very good both for honing our ideas and figuring out what's really real. And the audience can go, wow, that team looked a lot more prepared than that people. That's interesting. We can get feedback about where we should be investing our time and consciousness and money. But also practicing civility and the idea that you can disagree with people and still treat them like a human being deserving dignity. And I think that would be a great thing to develop amongst young people, and and then of course adults too. But like if we could start developing that in high school, that would be pretty cool, I think. And I think that balance of kind of competition and cooperation, conflict and peace and respect, that would be really cool. I think a lot of people would enjoy that, and it would prepare them well for being part of a educated society, which I think is just good. It's fun. But it's like I think as we're entering these strange waters of the future, with shout out to the strange waters of the future. Yeah, that's right. That was the strange waters of the future replying. So I think a great thing we can do is all just individually become more educated and more open to logic and the exchange of information and ideas, and admitting when we're wrong, being humble, and trying to just be our best, but acknowledging our flaws, and having fun, being interested in how can we learn more stuff, and not just ideas, but what new skills can you learn? Cooking. I've never really been into cooking. Why didn't I get into that? Just a culture of learning and evolution, but and crucially, the humility to understand that things which you don't like could actually be right and true, and useful. And so that requires a little death, the willingness to surrender part of your identity, or what you had considered your identity, what you had previously identified with and endorsed with your sense of self. So, all right. Basically, I think to sum this all up and bring it to a conclusion, I think I don't think there's anything more primal than consciousness. I think that is the essence and the substance and the ultimate nature of reality, as far as I can see. I mean, what do I know? I mean, I'm just copying someone else. But it makes sense to me. From my experience, that is true. But and a lot of people who have been celebrated through history have said much the same, and people who have kindly been very misinterpreted by their followers into making these huge religions, but who were originally pointing out some pretty universally accepted things, whether it be the Buddha or Jesus or whatever, or what's your man? Not Lao Tzu. Yeah, Lao Tzu. Yeah. Dao Di Ching, that kind of stuff. Whatever. People, basically saying the ultimate source of all things is consciousness, and that's in you. That's your soul. It's also the nature of the universe, and so all of our problems, they really flow from consciousness, and that's where that's the root. Some problems we don't need to go to that level to fix it. It's like, oh my, I got a punctured tire. All right, let's deal with that. But I think a lot of things. Oh my God, how do we stop this war? Or oh my God, how do we improve this health crisis? Or whatever it is. It seems like basically a lot of them you can't fix it unless you go really deep, and it's deeper than money. Money isn't the root of all evil. I wouldn't say. I would say ignorance is the root of all evil, specifically a lack of awareness or consciousness, and that consciousness of the outside world and what's going on requires that you be, I think, requires that you be in communion with your own self, that you know who you are. You have a certain minimum critical mass of self-consciousness. You're aware who you are. You're aware of the difference between thoughts and you, like your mind and your own seeing, your own presence. In this miraculous first-person video game where you just walk around the universe and you can't see your own face, but you see everything else, and it's just like a first-person video game, but it's real, and it's made of protons, electrons, neutrons, and here we are. It's physical, and yet it's all happening inside the space of your own presence and witnessing. And everyone else is doing that. We're all kind of, to some extent, have private universes, but understanding that we're all branches on the same tree. And so the point being, I think consciousness flows through education into the world. And so if we want to try to enjoy life and really play and have fun and transform things and create things, or if we want to fix problems or heal illnesses or whatever we want to do, I think the most powerful way to do it is through education, because that is the means by which our life energy and creativity and our soul or intelligence, our awareness, is able to flow into the world and interact. So whether it be like skills and basic stuff, or whether it be kind of, understanding like history or just knowledge in general, I think both on the individual level of just being happy and, having fun and being healthy and strong, etc. And then in terms of harmony between individuals and between groups, is there anything more important than education? Let me know in the comments, if there are comments, or if you're just listening to the audio, let me know by shouting enthusiastically at me as soon as I finish here, but not sooner. Don't interrupt, please. Please be civil. Yeah, so hope this has been educational. It's been educational for me, just thinking, talking to myself. And thank you for being here, and thank you for hosting me, as I said, inside your precious pearly white consciousness. And let's keep learning, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love.